Hello everyone, this is the CircuitPython weekly meeting for February 10th, 2025. It's the time of the week where we get together to talk about all things CircuitPython. My name is Scott and I'm sponsored by Adafruit to work on CircuitPython. CircuitPython is a version of Python designed to run on tiny computers called microcontrollers. CircuitPython development is primarily sponsored by Adafruit, so if you want to support Adafruit and CircuitPython, consider purchasing hardware from adafruit.com. This meeting is hosted on the Adafruit Discord server. You can join anytime by going to the URL adafru.it/discord. We hold the meeting in this hashtag CircuitPython dev text channel and the CircuitPython voice channel. This meeting typically happens on Mondays at 2 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific, except when it coincides with a U.S. holiday, which I believe it does next week. So next week will be on Tuesday at this time instead of Monday at this time. In the notes doc, there's a link to a calendar you can view online and add to your favorite calendar app that has the meeting times. We also send notifications about upcoming meetings via Discord. If you'd like to receive these notifications, ask us to add you to the @CircuitPythonistas Discord role. There is a shared notes doc that accompanies the meeting and recording. You can contribute to this document beforehand, even if you can't make the meeting. The final notes doc also includes timestamps to go along with the video, so you can use that to skip around and view the parts of the video that interest you most. These tend to run 30 to 60 minutes. After each meeting, we post the link for next meeting's notes doc to the CircuitPython dev channel on the Adafruit Discord. Check the pinned messages to find the latest notes doc so you can add your notes for the following meeting beforehand. If you wish to participate but cannot attend, you can leave hug reports and status updates in the doc for me or the host to read during the meeting. Okay, so how does the meeting go? The meeting is held in 5 parts. First is community news. This is a look at all things CircuitPython and Python on hardware in the community. It's a chosen set of items from our Python on microcontrollers newsletter. The second part is the state of CircuitPython libraries in Blinka. This is a quantitative overview of the entire project. It's a chance to look at the project by the numbers, separate from our status updates. Third, we have hug reports. It's an opportunity to highlight the good things folks are doing, taking the time to recognize the awesome folks in our community. It's done as a round robin, so this is a chance for all of us to speak. Fourth is status updates. This is also round robin, and it's an opportunity to report on what you've been up to. Take a couple minutes and talk about what you've been doing in the last week since the last meeting and what you'll be up to over the next week. Last and not least is the fifth part is in the weeds. It's an opportunity for more long-form discussions. A lot of people come up with questions here. These discussions come out of status updates or more often are thought of ahead of time and noted in the notes doc for the meeting. Okay, and that's how it will go. I will switch to the notes doc and add some time codes, and we will be off on our way. So for community news, this is a selection of articles from the Python for Microcontrollers newsletter that Anne puts together, that Anne organizes. First up is titled Maximizing MicroPython Speed. So there are times where we'd like code to run much faster than it does at present. Part of any coding class beyond the basics involves optimizing code for speed and size, especially in resource-restricted environments like microcontrollers and single-board computers. Okay. MicroPython has documentation which helps suggest code changes to make programs run faster, including the native and Viper code emitters. So that's a link to those docs. Thank you, Jeff, for offering to read Core and or Blinka. Let's read both of those when we get there. Okay, next up. MicroPython has IDE and tools. Mayor Koshti has a new guide to the best development environments for MicroPython on Medium. Click No Medium subscription. Read the full article here in the second paragraph to read. Next up. Debugging within Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code allows for debugging with the interface, including setting up a REPL with a link there. On the hardware front, Adafruit announces FruitJam, an RP2350B based single-board computer. Don't think that it's Linux by saying single-board computer. Looking to jam a redonkulous amount of hardware into a single-board computer. Adafruit has shown their design and process, initially entitled FruitJam. Adafruit is aiming for a classic game and computer emulation in CircuitPython, although it should work with any RP2350 compatible language emulator, that sort of thing. There's links to the Adafruit blog, Hackster.io, and Tom's Hardware about it. And then has big, juicy details about what we're looking to put with it. So with extra pins of the QFN80 RP2350B, we're able to jam a redonkulous amount of hardware into this shape. An RP2350B dual-core 150 MHz Cortex-M33 with a PicoProbe debug port, 16 megabytes of flash, 8 megabytes of PS RAM, USB Type-C for bootloading and USB client, micro SD card with SPI or SDIO, DVI output on the HSTX port, I2S stereo headphone plus mono speaker via the TLV 320 DAC 3100, a 2-port USB Type-A hub for both keyboard and mouse or game controllers, a chunky on-off switch, STEMMA TI2C, STEMMA Classic JST3 pin, iSpy for TFT displays, 5 NeoPixels, 3 tactile switches, and a 16-pin socket header with 10 analog and digital GPIO plus 5 volts, 3 volts, and ground power pins. The PSRAM will help when we want to do things like run emulations that need to store in fast RAM access, and it will also let us use the main SRAM as the DVI video buffer. So that's a detailed tease on the upcoming Fruit Jam. Last up in the news department, we have Adafruit updates the PIO Matter library for Raspberry Pi 5. The Raspberry Pi 5 can now drive Adafruit's RGB matrix bonnet and hat accessories thanks to the RP1's PIO blocks. And there's both Adafruit Learn Guide and Hackster coverage of this as well. Thank you to Foamy Guy for dropping those in the chats. So that is part of the newsletter. So the Python on Microcontrollers weekly newsletter is a CircuitPython community-run newsletter emailed every Monday. The complete archives are available at www.adafruitdaily.com/category/CircuitPython. It highlights the latest Python on hardware-related news from around the web, including CircuitPython, Python, and MicroPython developments. To contribute your own news or project, edit next week's draft on GitHub and submit a pull request with the changes. You may also email cpnews@adafruit.com or tag a post with CircuitPython, #CircuitPython on Mastodon, Blue Sky, or X. Okay, and that's it for community news. Let's go on to the state of CircuitPython libraries in Blinka. This is an automated statistical overview of the health of the project. We pull these numbers every day, but we look at them once a week. So these numbers are for the last 7 days from when the script pulled these numbers. So overall, we had 30 pull requests merged from 14 different authors. Marshall Miller is new/infrequent. Carlos G. Liberal is also new. So thank you to those new folks. At least I haven't seen them. And we had 7 reviewers, so thanks to our reviewers for those 30 pull requests overall. Overall, issues-wise, we had 8 closed issues by 5 people and 11 opened by 10, so we're net up 3. But that's not too bad. Next, I will ask Jeff to read for the core.
Thank you, Scott. So the core is the part of CircuitPython that is written in C and that you flash onto your device with UF2 or bin file. And we saw 12 pull requests merged over the last week from 9 authors. Thanks especially to the folks outside of Adafruit, like Sean the IT guy, Marshall Miller, W.T. Imura, ADCC, Carlos G. Liberal, and Andy Bing, as well as to our 3 reviewers, myself, Scott, and Dan. We presently have 23 open pull requests, of which 11 are draft, so we're keeping that below our goal of remaining on 1 page, which is 25 open pull requests. Issues-wise, we have a few more net issues, with 5 issues closed by 3 people and 8 issues opened by 8 people, leaving us with 751 open issues. We would love community members to work on almost any of those open issues, and we let you know what Adafruit is prioritizing by using milestones. The 9.2x milestone is one of our top priorities. That represents bug fixes, typically, that we want to make in our next stable release. And we've got 8 of those issues open. For 9xx, which are non-destabilizing new features, typically, we've got 58 open issues. And for 10.00, which are destabilizing or backwards incompatible feature changes, we've got 15 open issues. When we label an issue as long-term, that is an indication that Adafruit isn't prioritizing it right now. But as I was saying, we're happy to see community members pick up those long-term issues and improve CircuitPython. Finally, we have 2 issues not assigned a milestone at the time this report was generated, and one of the Adafruit people should go through and make sure that those are assigned one of the milestones that I've been mentioning. And that's what I've got for the core.
Thank you, Jeff. All right, next up, let's hear from Foamy Guy about the libraries.
Thank you, Scott. This section covers all of the CircuitPython libraries. They are primarily split into the libraries which are in the Adafruit bundle and the libraries which are contributed by third-party community members in the community bundle. Right now we have 351 libraries in the Adafruit bundle and 154 in the community bundle, which puts us at a total right now of 505. Over the past week, there were 18 pull requests merged, which is pretty nice. We had 5 different authors for those, so thank you to our authors. I will mention thanks to Jerry Needell and Jay Posada 2020, who are not necessarily new, but who have taken a step back, haven't been doing as much work lately, and it's nice to see those names pop up, as well as our other more frequent contributors. We had 6 reviewers this week, so thanks to Brent and Lady Ada and Liz for doing some reviews this week, as well as Scott, Dan, and myself. Of the pull requests that were merged, the oldest one was still fairly new, down at 16 days, and then, as usual, the newest several were just 1 day old. That leaves us at the end of the week with 54 pull requests open. The oldest one of those is a draft that's 907 days. The newest one is 1 day. Over the past week, issues-wise, we had 2 issues closed by 2 people with 1 new issue opened up, and that leaves us with 687 issues currently. There are 3 of those that are labeled Good First Issue, which you would be able to find over at circuitpython.org/contributing, which is the website where you should head if you want to get involved with the CircuitPython project. When you first load that page, circuitpython.org/contributing, you'll see a list of the open pull requests, which are in need of a person to review them, which is typically the first thing we point folks towards doing if you want to get involved. To do so, you could just look through that list, find a pull request that is either interesting to you, that you've got some prior knowledge about, or that you have the hardware for, you feel like you have an ability that you could test it out. Click through to GitHub, take a look at the code for spelling, syntax, logic errors, anything like that. Leave a comment on GitHub letting us know what you found when you looked it over. If you do have the hardware in order to test it out, let us know how that went as well, like what device you tested on, what version of CircuitPython, and how it behaved or not. Once you get comfortable with that process, if you would like to get leveled up to leave official reviews on GitHub, we can work with you on that. Or if you would like to start getting your hands dirty coding some yourself, you could also start trying to tackle issues, which are also listed at circuitpython.org/contributing. Along the top, there's navigation. You can click over to the issues where you'll find a similar list of links over to GitHub, but these ones represent issues that do not have a proposed change yet. These are waiting for a person to actually come along and do the work to make the change to resolve that issue, whether it's a bug fix or an enhancement or a new feature or example or something like that. So similarly, you can kind of take a look through that list, find something that you're interested in, find something that you've got hardware for, click through to GitHub, read about what the issue is, and then submit your own PR that attempts to resolve that issue. If you are new to the process and you need help with the version control, we have a guide for contributing to CircuitPython using Git and GitHub. We also have folks who are around throughout the week on Discord who are more than happy to help you out. So if you are having trouble either reviewing or contributing with any part of the process, be it the version control or the actions checks or anything else, just come say hi on Discord, let us know what you're up to, and let us know what you're having trouble with, and we will be more than happy to help you out. And then I will leave you with the updates and new libraries in the last 7 days. The 2 new ones in Adafruit land are for the INA 228 and the LPS 28. I think Liz worked on both of those, so hug report to Liz for those new libraries. Thanks.
Thank you, Tim. Next, let's ask Jeff to read the Blinka section.
Hello. So Blinka is a compatibility layer for Raspberry Pi and other single board computers that lets you run a lot of your CircuitPython code on a full Linux machine. And last week we saw 0 pull requests merged, and we've got 18 open pull requests, including 1 closed issue and 2 fresh new issues opened by 2 people. Sorry, I jumbled things together. We've got 18 open pull requests. Period. Issues-wise, we've got 126 open issues, with last week 1 closed and 2 opened. And I've been working on Blinka lately, but it's on libraries that are not reflected in the Adabot summary. So that's stuff like the RP1 PIO and the PIO matter and NeoPixel support for Raspberry Pi 5. So there is stuff going on in Blinka land. It's just not showing up in the statistics that we're posting right now. And last statistic, number of supported boards stands at 146. And that wraps it up for Blinka.
Do we have a change to add those to the Blinka stats?
I have opened an issue. I should probably go implement it myself. It's just a matter, it's not using like the Adafruit Blinka prefix within the GitHub repo. It's just a hard-coded list. So someone needs to add those. There's an issue, but I haven't fulfilled the issue yet with a pull request.
Okay. Yeah. Shouldn't be too bad. Okay, thanks, Jeff. Next up is Hug Reports. This is the first of 2 round robins where I will start and we'll go through the lists as listed in the notes doc. This is where you can, if you're unable to make the meeting or choose not to speak, you can drop text notes in here and just say that you're out or not speaking. And I will read them off. Hug reports are a chance for you to say thank you to folks in the community for things that they've been doing. This is great for both thanking people for what they've done, but also reinforcing as a community the things that we value. So we'll do hug reports first, and then we'll get on the status updates after this. So I will start as an example. So first, hug to Timonsku for jumping in the deep dive chats and giving me pointers for Zephyr. They have a lot of experience with that, so that's really helpful. Hug to Lady Ada for the Fruit Jam design. I've dreamt of a CircuitPython standalone computer, and I'm excited to have some dedicated hardware for that. And then lastly, a hug to Jeff Jepler for the code size reduction PRs. Code size is really tricky to do, and it's really awesome when somebody just pops up and makes things better. So thanks, Jeff, for that. Okay, next up we have notes from C. Grover that I'll read off after I take another time code. First, a hug to DJ Devon3 for the extra effort to find an open weather map API alternative and to provide a creative CircuitPython code example for the Open Media URL API. Also, hugs to Paul Cutler for inviting me to talk about weather stations on a recent episode of the CircuitPython show. Received some excellent feedback as a result. And now I have notes from Dan. Dan says, hug to Just Mobilize Tyeth for testing the Nina firmware release. Hug to TAC for doing almost all the work needed for the Nina firmware update. And lastly, a hug to ADCC for excellent work on LWIP updates. Next, we have ADCC.
All right. Hello. So I just wanted to send a hug out to Tanu, Dan H., Jepler, and Anecdata for all the help and hints along the way. I am very impressed with this team, and I love this project. That's it.
Thanks, ADCC, and we're happy to have you as part of the project. Next up is Foamy Guy.
All right, thank you. I have hug reports this week thanks to Maker Melissa for working on some fixes in the web IDE. Thanks to Jeff for continued improvements to the PO Matter library as well as documentation there. Thanks to Scott for an old basic keyboard USB host test in the core repo that I think you pointed me to many moons ago, which turned out to be very helpful this weekend. Thanks to Dan for working on the updates to Nina firmware, the certs and other improvements there, as well as everyone else who helped start that work and tested it. Appreciate that. I think Nina firmware is a good thing to get updated so the PyPortals and everything can work with new websites and new certs and everything. So I think that's really cool stuff. Appreciate the work on that. And a group hug. Thanks to everyone for being awesome.
All right. Thank you, Foamy Guy. Next up is Jepler.
Hello. I want to turn around and thank Foamy Guy for working on the PIO matter stuff with me. ADCC, thank you for popping in with a lot of expertise, but particularly today with some low-level ARM stuff that I'm still processing that has to do with interrupt handling. Thank you to Cooper, Relic SE, for doing some reviews on my code. Thanks to Scott and Dan also for reviews and merging of PRs. Lamore, I'm excited about the fruit jam, and I think the excitement from everybody is palpable. So you got a cool one in the works. And finally to Paul Cutler, thank you for editing together the podcast that I was a part of. And mea culpa, I haven't listened through the draft edited version that you sent me. I'm also really excited for you that you've got so much in the hopper that it will be April before my episode debuts. And that's what's on my mind. Thanks.
Thank you, Jepler. All right, I've got 3 more quick ones from folks who were unable to make the meetings, so I'll go through that. First, Liz says, hug to Mark and Cooper for tips on using audio effects with the analog buff I/O. Next up, after timecode, is from Mark, who goes by Gambler as well. Oh, Mark, do you want to read? I see he's actually in the... Okay, I'll read. Mark says, hug to Jepler and Cooper for continued audio effects ideas, PRs, and reviews. Also hug to Paul Cutler for having me as a guest on and in general for the CircuitPython show. And last up, we had notes from Sam, who says, hug to Lady Ada for the fruit jam design. This is very exciting. Awesome. Okay, next up, we have another round robin section. This time it's called status updates. This is a chance to say what you've been working on in the past week and what you plan on working on in the coming week. So, and it's a round robin just like before, so I'll start and then I'll read the folks who are listed in the note stock. So for me, I'm planning on being out Wednesday morning to put things back together at our house after we get some flooring installed and before the cleaners come on Thursday. I'm currently working on Zephyr CircuitPython. I figured out a crash due to having 2 heaps in the same place, one Zephyr heap and one in the CircuitPython heap. So I've moved past that. Now I'm debugging why connecting doesn't work, trying to connect to a Wi-Fi access point. It looks to be something to do with random via like a BLE core or something. I'm going to continue down the Zephyr networking path, trying to get sockets and stuff working for Wi-Fi. And I may dabble in Ethernet and mobile along that way, depending on how much stamina I have for Zephyr networking. But I also may get distracted by the fruit jam. In theory, I should hopefully get one this week. Not to tout it, but I'll be working on that. I was trying to take a nap this weekend, and I actually was like just thinking about the things I wanted to do for it. So I filed a CircuitPython issue 10,045 with some ideas that I thought would make it better to do standalone CircuitPython. So take a look at that if you're curious. And then we also started a discussion on TinyUF2 for support for CircuitPython 10. I think we want to do that in the next month or 2, just before I go on leave, because it enables BLE on 4 megabyte ESP32 S3s. It's a major version change because it will it requires like you to update the bootloader. Okay, so that's my status update. Next up, I'll read for C. Grover, who says, I finished an open media weather display project using an ESP32 S3 and a 2.4-inch TFT featherwing. The playground note will be published today. Playing with plastics is the theme for this week. I'm trying to refine and document some techniques for hand machining and bending acrylic, ABS, and polycarbonate into project stands and enclosures. Turns out that KiCad makes an excellent CAD tool for designing the glued-on paper fabrication templates, particularly when importing actual size Adafruit Eagle footprints for things like TFT, featherwing, PCB. So that's from C. Grover. Next up, I have notes from Dan. who is out. It says, got Nina firmware working with ECDSA certificate chains. Tax PR was really fine, except that the firmware was running out of heap space. I reduced the number of available sockets from 7 to 6, which helped some. Community users helped me test. I then also reduced the root certificate file, mostly by discarding some discredited certificates. That helped even more, and a test of many HTTPS sites now work without error. I released Nina firmware as 2.0 RC0 Adafruit, and will make a final release after Tyeth and others do some more testing. Dan also did some more PR reviews and testing of things for a 9.2.5 release that will probably come out next week. All right, let's hear from Foamy Guy now.
Right, thank you. I started taking photos and created guide pages for an upcoming guide for Steamboat Willie clock project that features the new round displays, and I also designed and printed a very basic box for it to fit inside of. I tested some of those fixes in the web IDE. I started updating the PO matter examples to use the new configuration parameters, and then once that is all done and everything is working, I will also go back and add a section or a guide page that covers it to the guide. And then over the weekend, I figured out how to read some data from a generic USB PS3 controller I picked up and map the numbers or the bits that come in to the correlated button presses. So I will eventually add support to the generic game controller library that I worked on a couple weeks back, which will make this very easy to integrate with CircuitPython games. And I will document the process so that we have a place to point folks who want to just get a random USB gamepad working in CircuitPython. And that's what I've been up to. Thanks.
Nice. I was just thinking I need to get a wireless gamepad because I'm going to want to sit on my couch. All right, next let's hear from Jeff.
Hello again. So PIO Matter, which I don't know if we said, but it's the library for driving Hub 75 style RGB matrix displays on the Pi 5, is in good shape. I've been doing some improvements of the API and supporting more different panel types. The last thing that I added was support for panels that swap the R and the B, the red and the blue color data, which pins that they're on. And I made sure that all the Pi 5 Python libraries I've written recently have docs online via read the docs. And other miscellaneous stuff, people have alluded to the code size saving things that I did. One was to allow most objects to share the same implementation of the dunder exit method, and the other was a reorganization of audio samples so it reduces the amount of code that has to be written for each different kind of audio sample, which, especially now that we're adding audio samples that are things like filters and effects, we've got a lot more of them than we used to, so the payoff is even bigger. And then what I'm working on right now is fixing a problem on the RP2350 when we write to flash the DVI display or HDMI display, whatever you want to call it, goes blank because we're masking the interrupt that has to occur at every vertical refresh. And I'm trying to learn enough about interrupt priority and interrupt masking on ARM to write up a fix. But before the meeting, I was kind of scratching my head and it wasn't working yet. It was just crashing with an error I've never seen before in GDB. So that's fun, and that's what I'll be working on.
Thank you, Jepler, and I'm happy to help you more with that if you need it. All right, let's hear from ADCC.
All right. So this week, I had the pleasure of resolving a slew of performance stability issues with the lightweight IP stack on RP2, and did that by configuring it to use dynamic TLSF heap memory rather than having a whole bunch of static allocations. And I need a small assist to resolve some Git problems I'm having with the Adafruit's LWIP repo. I don't know, it should be easy, but it's not. And I'm in the process of adding and testing RP2350 SHA-256 hardware acceleration to embed TLS. This is for the RP2 port, and it should help with HTTPS performance. And that's all I got for this week.
Thank you, ADCC. And yes, Git is confusing. Git is confusing, so it happens. Okay, last up we have notes from Sam Blenny, who says, learning my way around Zephyr and writing playground guides about it. Working on a Zephyr board definition for the Feather RP2350. Planning to try the Metro 2350 and FruitJam once boards are available. Planning to look at display support, so SPI, HSTX, maybe LVGL. That would be cool. Okay, that's it for status updates. Last up is In the Weeds. We don't have any topics for In the Weeds, so we're just going to cruise right by it. This would have been a chance for people to bring up any questions or things that we want to talk about. So if something comes up this week, feel free to drop it in the notes doc for next week. And speaking of next week, let's go to the wrap-up. This has been the CircuitPython weekly meeting for February 10th, 2025. Thank you to everyone who participated. If you want to support Adafruit and CircuitPython, and those of us that work on CircuitPython, consider purchasing from the Adafruit shop at adafruit.com. The video of this meeting will be released on YouTube at youtube.com/Adafruit, and the podcast will be available on major podcast services. It'll also be featured in the Python for Microcontrollers newsletter next week. Visit adafruitdaily.com to subscribe. Next week, the meeting is one day later than normal, so it will be next Tuesday, February 18th at the usual time, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. Thank you to whomever added that to the notes doc. This meeting is held on the Adafruit Discord server, which you can join by going to the URL adafru.it/discord. To be notified about the meeting and any changes to the time or day, you can ask to be added to the @CircuitPythonistas role on Discord. With that, we hope to see you all next week. Those of you in the US, have a great long weekend. We'll see you in the Discord this week and the meeting next week. Thank you all.